So when it comes to maybe breaking down, maybe looking outside of an ideal starting 11, right? When we're looking at potential young prospects to keep an eye on for this team, who are you keeping an eye on and why, Lisa?
For me, I am keeping an eye on Trinity Rodman. Um, hear me out. Hear me
All right.
out. She rookie of the year last year, so she
Yeah.
is still very young, one of
Yeah.
the youngest players in the league. She did not go to college, went straight to the professional game. Um, and I think she had a lot to prove last year. Trinity Rodman came into the NWSL and um, off the pitch, she doesn't have the closest relationship with her father, Dennis Rodman. And I think that for her as a player, she wanted to prove that she could make a name for herself and not her father's name in Dennis Rodman. And she showed up every day and she tried to be consistent and she worked really hard and she tried to hone her skill. And she ended up being the rookie of the year. She did what she set out to do and be the best that she could be in 2021. At the end of 2021, I mean, it really all came together for her. Rookie of the year, winning an NWSL championship, signing a 4-year, over $1 million contract for the Washington Spirit. I don't want that to affect her on the pitch. And because she is so young, I think maybe it could. I hope that some veterans and older players around her that she's close with, Kelly O'Hara, even on the squad for Washington Spirit, is kind of taking her under her wing and saying, like, Trin, it's okay. Like, you still just got to play ball. Like, that's really it. So I am keeping an eye on Trinity Rodman because I don't think it's going to happen, but it's a possibility that things could get into her head as her second year in the season. Maybe she'll I don't want to say slack off, but she doesn't think it'll be as hard as it was last year. She doesn't think she'll have to work as hard, but there are 12 teams and every single player in the league has their eyes on Trinity Rodman. She has a bullseye on her back and every single player is coming for her.
Yeah, I don't think that's unfair to sort of mention at all. I think obviously when we're looking at something like young prospect, right? You look at somebody like Trinity Rodman and see her age automatically, and she fits that category, right? Even though she's going into her second pro season, but coming off of the season that she had, right? Winning rookie of the year honors, making highlight reels, right? And now coming off of an off season where she inked a historic contract, right? These are all things that are going to come into play as the 2022 season comes closer and comes more into focus, right? People are going to be looking for that. That comes with all the highlights and with all the hype. People are going to be looking for if there's going to, potential for a sophomore slump, things like that. Is this player going to continue, her development and continue to take that next step into the next level? And I'm hopeful for it. I loved what we saw out of Rodman during that 2021 season. I do know that she also had to, struggle, a little bit with some lingering back injuries, right? Some
Yeah.
things that she had to carry. She played through some things, right? And carried some things through that regular season. How is she going to continue to navigate something like that, right? As she continues to develop and take these steps into her pro career. And
Um,
who is she going to rely on, right?
Well,
Outside of that.
Sandra, before we dive into that, I'm sorry, I'm just cutting you off here. I can't stop talking. On the other side of Trinity Rodman having potentially a sophomore slump, sorry, I
I
just have
love it.
so many words and exciting things I want to say. I got to get them
Oh,
out. Like, I want her to get better this year. That's a young prospect. She can still get better. I mean, she
that's
has
yeah.
so much potential in her. Can she be more consistent every time she steps on the field? Can she really manage her injuries as a professional? I mean, right, like, I want her to crack a new glass ceiling that she did last year. Can she do it again and continue to grow and get better as a player? That's also the other side of the coin for Trinity Rodman. But who
Yeah.
is she going to rely on? I'm sorry, I stole your transition there. Who is she going to rely on?
I really don't know, because honestly, when you're looking at that attacking line, right? We're talking about Rodman as a whole in this attacking line. It's a pretty young attacking line, right? And I
Yeah.
think if you're looking at even if you're looking at somebody like an Ashley Hatch, she's someone who's been in the league for quite some time already, but is only 26, right?
Yeah.
So kind of like still developing alongside this. So maybe on the attacking line, Ashley Hatch is going to be that person, right? That maybe she leans into for the offensive side of things. But in terms of just like still navigating a pro career, right, and sort of team camaraderie, I think this is going for everybody on this roster, not just a Trinity Rodman, but when they were looking for that experience, like that essential experience player for the Washington Spirit, I don't know how you don't look at this roster and not say that it's Andy Sullivan, right? This is a player, again, another player that you're looking at, seeing when they entered the league. Oh, 2018, right?
Mhm.
You're stepping into a fifth year of your career, but only at what, 26 years old. So it's like the age isn't matching up with maybe the level of taking a step into being a pro with this team. But Sullivan is a player that has been part of this franchise and their programs for years, right? For a long time, before going pro as part of the Washington Reserves at one point, and then being drafted by this franchise and really sort of growing up and being built around a little bit. As we started to see more attacking players come into the fold with a Sanchez and with a Rodman. So what Sullivan is doing for this team on the pitch, right, is we're noticing is that she's also been doing it off of the pitch for this team when it comes to taking on a leadership role, captaining the team through what was arguably their most difficult season to date, right? And I think that's going to come through even more this year because this team is likely going to be without their previous, most experienced player and somebody like a Torrey Huster, right? So who are they going to lean on? They're likely going to be some combination of Herrera and Sullivan, but I see Sullivan maybe taking that next step into being that sort of leader for this team moving forward. Active year. We've been covering She Believes Cup already. 2022 is going to continue to have all kinds of international windows, including a big World Cup qualifier. So when we're looking at an international spotlight for this team, I think we've already got a taste of it, Lisa, with players who are coming in and out of this club.
We are, because this club, Washington Spirit, has the most of any NWSL club team, the most players on the United States women's national team roster. And that's like a consistent feature because over the last few months, the U.S. women's national team has had a lot of players coming in and out of their rosters, their camps. She Believes Cup happened, and a lot of the players from Washington Spirit have been the consistent ones. I think that's probably the biggest chunk of players that could honestly put a little deflation in the middle of this 2022 season for Washington Spirit because they will be without some really, really big names in Kelly O'Hara, Emily Sonnet, Andy Sullivan, Ashley Sanchez, Ashley Hatch, and Trinity Rodman. These are really big key pieces. Even Aubrey Kingsbury in goal, she's gotten a number of call-ups. She was on the roster for She Believes Cup, didn't get caps, but she's there. So she's right inside that mix. And this, when you look at this list of players, it's across all of the lines, right? I mean, we talked about the front line for and the forwards for Washington Spirit. Yeah, Trinity Rodman. Oh, she's gone. Ashley Hatch. Ashley Sanchez. Andy Sullivan in the midfield. It's almost like these 5 or 6, 7 players are all in the starting lineup for Washington Spirit. So without them, who is going to step up? And that, I mean, I feel like I've echoed this throughout every preview when a team is going to be missing a lot of players during international break. I think it's up to the coaches to kind of establish that next man up mentality and almost like not equal playing time, but equal consistent, like measures of training, if that makes sense, so that when there is these substitutes that come in, it's not a drop off of play and it's a seamless transition to what may be the substitutes or the second string players, that B team of players that can then get their chance to come in and prove themselves on this roster, especially during World Cup qualifiers this summer, because I think it could really take a hit for Washington Spirit.
I'm with you, and I agree with you 100% on that. Like I said, we already got a taste of it, right, with recent January camps and then the She Believes Cup tournament that just took place. Seeing all of these players representing the Washington Spirit, it might disrupt a little bit of the flow, right, that they're trying to establish during the 2022 season, on top of already having that target on their back, right, as reigning champions as they go through their title defense through this season, which probably leads us to our biggest burning question for this club entering the 2022 season, right? It's simple. Can the Washington Spirit repeat as champions in 2022. Everything on paper says that they can make a run at this and take a crack
Yeah.
at this, but it's tough to go back to back in this league, right? And not only is that happening, they're going to be doing this title defense in an expanded NWSL year where there is now going from 10 teams to 12 teams. What do you think, Lisa? Can they repeat?
It's so easy to just look at this one dimensionally, and the roster that they have, the head coach Chris Ward that's in place, the new ownership that they have. It should be smooth sailing on paper for this club to just waltz through the 2022 season right into the playoffs and breeze their way through to the championship. However, we know that soccer is not one dimensional. It is multi-dimensional. There are many different factors and facets and layers and levels to what can happen. Injuries that come up, inconsistencies, national team call ups that happen that pull teams apart, trades that happen midseason, loans that happen. There are so many different things that could cause this team to not fall apart, but to have holes in it throughout this regular season. I think the biggest thing is that in 2021, Washington Spirit was like this unknown young group of players. They weren't really sure what they were going to throw out at the game every time that they played. Opponents really didn't have much to go on because Washington was using their speed up top, their strength in the midfield, and their vision on the ball to kind of break down teams. And it was almost like a surprising win for them. Not in a shocking way, but more of just like, oh, Washington Spirit, they're still winning. This is pretty fun. I don't know if they have that element of surprise this year. I don't know if they have that chip on their shoulder like they did last year, and the willingness to prove that despite everything happening in the front office with their club, that they could come out and perform on the pitch. It was almost like an outlet for these players to step on the field and just play. Now, with everything smooth off the pitch, can they continue to be those fire starters with the ball in these matches? I think that if there's a team that could go back to back and win 2 NWSL championships, this is the squad, though.
Yeah.
Honestly, I do. If there's any team, it's this team and this roster.
Listen, I'm with you on that. The question is, can they repeat in 2022? In terms of a projected finish for this club at the end of 2022, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to stay with our way too early power rankings, and I'm going to leave them at number 1 in the power rankings, and I'm going to leave them at number 1 in a projected finish for the 2022 season. I think there's everything on paper for this team to go ahead and try to repeat, even with an expanded landscape of teams where the competition looking a little different, maybe in some people's opinions thinning out, right, or leveling out the type of competition that there's going to be in NWSL. But I think that just primes the recipe, that primes the pot even more to be stirred for this team to go ahead and be the ones eating at the end of this season, lifting the title for a second time. I love a good dynasty. I would love to see a new one here in NWSL, and with Trinity Rodman being the face of that, I think that's very, very exciting. So I'm going to keep him number 1. I think you're kind of feeling the same way. And hey, if it doesn't happen, you know what we love doing? Coming out here and being proven wrong, right, Lisa?
I mean, no pressure, Washington Spirit, but we're dubbing you as number 1 in 2022. We're doing it. You heard it here. Prove us wrong later. Prove us how hard it was. But yeah, let's see if they can do it, Sandra. Manifest it, right? It would be pretty fun to see.
We're going to be covering it all along the way. I want to thank everybody for joining us and listening to our 2022 Spirit preview.